email it to everyone.
Okay. Awesome.
All right. So I'll go ahead and start. I'm Michelle. I'm a spiritual life coach, psychic empath. I help people with shadow work, releasing the negatives, energies within their heart space. So that way they can create a happier, better world for themselves. Cheri, we'll go with you next. Cannot hear you.
Oh, Cheri, you're still on mute.
Okay, sorry about that. I hit it twice. I'm Cheri Huss, and I am a psychic medium, and I am a reader. And basically, my goal is to help people with closure and healing in their lives. And I think that's really about a wrap up on that.
Lisa?
So thank you.
Hi, everybody. I am Lisa, and I'm so excited to be in your company. And I just am so appreciative of Michelle and Cheri. Hi, I love you. So good to see you. And hi, Jennifer, new friend, I hope. Or yeah, co-worker. No, it's nice to meet a co-worker. I live in Gearing, and my spiritual gift is I'm a knower, and I have the ability to feel the energy behind the written word, whether it's in electronic communication, handwritten. It's kind of odd, but I always not know so much what the words are saying, but what was under it, what emotional quality or intention was under it, I feel in my body. So I'm a knower is the best way to put it. And I feel truth. That sounds probably kind of strange, but my goal is to, in whatever possible way I can use my gifts to help people connect with themselves and their higher self, so that they too can know truth. That's my mission. And I do that with yoga, breath work, meditation, and a lot of my practice is evolving into nature, connecting with land. And I also have a breath movement practice that I'm developing called archetypal gesture that I think is going to be quite helpful in the future. So thanks for having me.
Thank you for sharing. Jennifer.
So I'm happy to meet you guys. Michelle is the only one on the call that I know. So hi. And then my name is Jennifer Lonnberg. I am a spiritual teacher. I started my work as being the Christian psychic in hiding. So because I have a Christian background, and Jesus is actually one of my guides. And so I've always seen Jesus and the angels. So it's always been just normal to me. And I love church. I love the Bible. I love all of those things. And I feel like there's so much more that we're called to be. I wasn't raised in a church that talked about prophetic gifts or gifts of the spirit or anything like that. So I had no reference for it. So I was like, well, I'm psychic. What am I supposed to do? And I finally have understood what that gift is and how to actually work with that and help others not be afraid of their gift, because everybody has a divine spark. We all have a uniqueness about us, and we all use that intuition in a different way. And I really want to help people not be afraid of the spiritual realms, especially as we move into 5D, because it's becoming so much more palpable. Like we can actually there's so many people right now waking up going, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? I see dead people. And I've never seen them before. And so I'm like, nope, you're okay. You're not doing anything wrong. It's all going to be okay. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I do a spiritual teacher. I'm a life coach and all kinds of other, NLP and law of attraction and all of that good stuff. So, which I think most of us, when we get into the spiritual woo-woo, we're like, oh, I want to get into all of it. I want to keep learning and keep learning. So it makes the spiritual journey so fun.
Right. So the one question that I thought of and came up with was, how do you feel the collective energy is right now? And we'll just kind of go around like a round table type and have everyone answer. because we're all so different. We're all going to get different energies. And that way there, we're going to have multiple people watching and they can connect to, that's the one I agree with. So Jennifer, since you went last, you get to go first this time.
Okay. So I don't know about you guys, but I did feel a little bit of a shift on the 21st, and I apologize because I'm multitasking. I actually need to bring this in because somebody has a rooster that's crowing in the background. Did you guys hear that?
Yeah, a little
Is that
bit.
your-
That's
okay.
Jennifer.
So
I muted myself for it.
Yeah, no, I was hearing it. I was like, oh, what is the message here? And it's so perfect because we're moving into Aquarius, which is all about uniqueness, right? The rooster says, and I just pulled it up on Google. It says, when rooster struts in as your spiritual or spirit animal, it's time to celebrate your uniqueness. Rooster as a totem animal belongs to those who never give up, which is what we're being asked to do right now, is don't give up, hold fast. And it says, call in rooster as your power animal when you need to rise and shine. And I feel like that's something we're all being asked right now, to really rise into our divine purpose, and really understand that there's so much more that's going on. So I did feel a little bit of a shift over yesterday. It was like the collective, like, you know what I mean? Like, and I don't know if it's because I'm in the US and people are like, okay, well, maybe at least now things will, you know, settle down because of the, you know, transition of the administration that's there. But what's really interesting is my guides this morning reminded us, because I do channel messages on Patreon, and they're saying that the shift in energy proves that many are still being manipulated by the media, which means they are looking for truth outside of themselves.
Right.
And so it's so true. There's a spirit, this is spiritual awakening. This is a spiritual energy, a spiritual battle, whatever. I'm getting really bad feedback. Are you guys hearing that?
I am, but I'm just like going, we're just kind of
Is
ignoring it.
everybody- Can I just interject that if you, Michelle, mute everyone except the speaker, we won't have that happening.
Okay.
That happens when everybody's got their mics on.
Gotcha. Thank you, Lisa. So anyway, that's what I'm getting, is that people are looking for truth by watching the news or by watching, you know, what's going on outside of them, or looking on social media or whatever. And the big thing that we have to learn right now, and I've been talking about this for a long time, but like, I really feel like people are starting to get there. So all of us that have been doing this work, everybody here, like, we've been doing this work for the last however many years, right? And it's like, people are finally at that point where they're ready to do that. And it's all about, first of all, understanding that we're sovereign. And then second, actually taking that responsibility on and being responsible for ourselves, which isn't a fun thing to teach on, right? People hear self-responsibility and they're like, I'm out, you know? I'd rather just let somebody tell me what to do instead of me deciding for myself what to do. But in order to really move forward on your spiritual path, you have to take in that, you know, that personal responsibility, self-responsibility. Last year, my guides were saying radical responsibility. They've shifted from radical responsibility last year to self-responsibility this year. And they're still also telling me that I have a journal that I keep that has all of my channeled messages in it. And it says for January, what they were telling me was illusions, discernment, sovereignty, self-responsibility, but also limitless possibility and instant manifestations. So it's not like, I think people are like, oh my God, it's so bad. And I'm like, no, it's so awesome. It's so amazing. Like, there's so much happening right now. And even the astral plane is being cleared out. So things should start getting more clear as we move forward. Okay, now somebody else.
All right.
Else stuff.
Thank you, Jennifer. Lisa, what do you
I see a
have?
couple notes, so I'm like hoping you guys are feeling similar.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I definitely feel that. What I'm feeling too in the collective is just this sense that people are on a very choppy sea, and they're reaching out for external messaging, for external guidance. And because they are on this choppy sea, which is, you know, now it's this president, and now it's this administration, and now it's this person and this news story, and, you know, this, you know, perceived hope. And oh, that didn't work. Oh my gosh, the person that I like to follow on YouTube lied to me because it didn't come about the way I thought. And so, what I'm really sensing and feeling here is just how critical it is for all of us who are spiritual teachers to try in every way possible to connect with those people that are in our sphere of influence and help them understand that we have to disconnect these etheric cords that are going to the media, that are going to politicians, that are going to, even in some cases, our church leaders, because they're all in the same program that we are. They're getting it in a different way. I also am a Christian. I also follow Jesus, and I work for a church, and this church has, regional leadership and national leadership, and the messaging that's coming through is very interesting to me, how the programs get planted. And so what I'm really wanting all of us to do is to try in whatever way possible to help everyone understand that these projections of what life is and how change can happen and how things should be are just that. They're projections of false light. So how can we help them to disconnect from that and go inside where the temple of the Lord resides inside of us, each one of us, and we connect with the real light, which is God and God's wisdom. And because there's been such a number done on our spirituality, and anyone who teaches this way is, called a false prophet or a woo-woo person or someone that, a psychic, what, that's garbage. We've got to find a way to help people understand that there's nothing to be afraid of when you sit still in the darkness of the morning and breathe and close your eyes and then wait and listen for an answer. And there's a lot of interesting dialogue around what prayer is versus meditation. And I think if your prayer doesn't include listening, then you're not really getting the signal back, are you? The answers back. And so what people do is they pray, thank you, God, for this, and please do this, and please do that. But do they ever listen and find out how they're part of the solution? I'm not sure. But that's what I've been practicing for the last probably 3 years now. And so what I see again is just this stormy sea and all of the external chords connecting to all of these loud voices about what it is and what it should be and what it can be, when if you listen quietly, you'll be told what it is and what it can be. And so that's my goal, and that's what I'm feeling right now. So thanks for the moment to share that.
Thank you, Lisa. Cheri, what is your
Well, I have to go right along with both of these ladies. I've been doing, I did a collective reading, and the message that was very clear was people are following the fear, because that is such an intense emotion, and so then that triggers anger, and it triggers desperation, and it triggers justification for their behavior. And so my message to the collective was follow the love, not the fear. And I'm not talking about, oh, I love you, fluffy stuff. I'm talking about that Christ consciousness, tapping into that unconditional love and sending it out, literally some days, just get into your heart space and then just send it out through your palms to the world, because everybody needs it. All these different platforms, I'm not a very political person, and it's overwhelming to me. So I just kind of try to hit the highlights, but all these different groups think they're right, and they're shouting for attention, and they're shouting out of ego, I'm this, background, so I'm more important than you, or I'm this, gender or race or orientation, and I'm my voice is important too. And what we're seeing once again, like it always does, is we go too far. And then, you know, trying to get everybody equal, we're just marginalizing other people still, instead of showing that unconditional love to everyone like we would want. And one thing is very clear to me as I'm watching a little bit of the news. I finally had to get away from it because it's really affecting me. Nobody wants to hear each other. They want their 5 minutes of fame and glory. They want their pound of flesh. And they're not interested in peace. They're interested in keeping the narrative of division, because that's where the money is. And people are following the fear of everything instead of following the fact that they are co-creator with their creator. And they're feeling helplessness instead of realizing, okay, I can't control the world stage, but I can control myself. I can control the love I share in my household and in my community. And from there, I'm seeing how it goes. It starts inward and it slowly ripples out. Does that make sense? So yeah, I think my collective message for everyone has just been disconnect, unplug, unbusy, unburden, and really get into that Christ consciousness of unconditional love for your neighbor. Walk what you're preaching. So I hope that makes sense.
Thank you, Cheri, for sharing.
Thank you.
So some of the things that I've been getting is that yesterday there was this huge energy shift, and it's like some people went, like their energy went, yay, and some people with their energy went, no. And it was like the change of dynamics. And with that, the universe just felt like it just toppled upside down. Like everything we've been striving for the last 4 years was like, oh, is it really done? Because it almost feels like with change of guards, we have to change everything we do. And if people realize, like definitely like with this ascension that we're going through, that if we come back into our bodies, what they're doing with the change of guards does not affect us at all. And people are forgetting that because they're so busy living out here going, okay, what is the news saying? What is the science saying? What are, the doctors saying? And I'm just like going, okay, I have not watched news in 10 years. I go and read articles on tidbits of things I want to know on both sides to get the information. But I'm like, no, the television is a dark box. And what I've also gotten is that over the since television has been created, that we have been shown how to create this world that we're in today through the visions and what we're being told day in and day out for the last 70, 50, 60, 70 years. And so it's time for us to turn off that TV, get outside, talk to people, get back in our communities. We have lost touch with who our neighbors are, what our community does. And that's part of like taking back the charge and having that. Other thing I'm getting is that people are not having a purpose on this earth right now. It's almost feel like one side or the other that they're on with everything is their purpose. Like, okay, I belong in this group. I belong in this group. And that becomes their purpose and their drive because, again, they're not back in their bodies to truly know what their purpose is. Because for any of us to know what our purpose is, one, we have to be in our bodies. And two, we have to be able to connect and talk to other people. Those are the main things for knowing what our purpose is. So yeah, we've just been like, kind of all been in this little conveyor belt. And then this energy shift happened. And it's just been turning everything upside down. And the people who don't go inside They're not knowing how to think and feel about one day from the next. So it's going to be us to go, hey, no, this is how you do it. So I love the fact that Lisa does yoga and breath work to get them back into their bodies. Because right now, I really think that's a major big component is if we can get them back inside their bodies, then we can get them to realize that their body is truly their temple and that their sacred oil is already within them. So does anyone else have a question they want to go ask?
So thank you for that, Michelle. I feel very much the truth in what you're saying. And I guess my question to this group would be, what are some ways that you think we could attract more people to connecting with themselves? I live in a very tiny area, a very small town. Cheri does too. And I'll have monthly breathwork offerings, and I have a minimum of 4 because it's a lot of work for me to do, to set up the room and do the work, and then tear down at the end. And it's kind of my whole day, really. And so I often will only have one person that signs up. And once in a while, the stars align perfectly and there's like 8. It's very interesting. But often, it's not enough to even make it happen. And my yoga classes are very small as well, but the people who are coming and being fed there are, really committed, and it's really beautiful. So I guess, if anyone has any ideas about how we can reach out, it's such a divisive world. We are in this state of being where there's really aggressive, staunch, dig in your heels energy. And people feel like they have to be right, as somebody else said earlier. And it's not about that. It's about, you've been out here floating externally for quite a long time. What would it feel like to come back into your body and into your heart and into your home? And so, I'm not real sure how to do that. And maybe it's just a product of being in a small community, but I'd be real open to, maybe it's a conversation like this that we start having regularly and inviting people to jump on and ask us questions, or try to demystify some of the practices that we offer. But I'd really love to know what you all think.
So if it's okay, I'm going to jump in. I do have to leave in about 10 minutes. Maybe less than that, but I totally understand the whole small town thing. I grew up in a really small town. As a matter of fact, that was my company is Small Town Lady. Like, because so when I started 100 years ago, it feels like when I was just doing like herbal nutrition, and I did the same thing. I taught yoga, a very small town, did herbal consultations, those kind of things. And I still love all that. I still do all the natural, as much natural stuff as I can, without being shut down on Facebook for that kind of stuff. But I think the biggest thing that I feel like is important right now is getting back to the basics, because I think there's going to be a lot of new people that are waking up right now and they're like, what the heck does that even mean, to get back in your body? They don't know, because we've been programmed. So going back to what Michelle said, I just want to say, tell a vision, channel, and programming. Just think about that. That's all I'm saying. So it's just like anything else. Just like if you're going to listen to somebody that channels, you want to have a discernment on what you're doing. So I like TV. Like my husband and I are bingers, like on Netflix and stuff. But I also am very particular about what I watch. Right. And so there's certain channels I won't turn on their news, because I know that it's going to just be bleh, and it's going to feel gross, and I'll feel just so drained by the time I get off of it. So it's all, again, coming back to that self-responsibility and discernment of what are you actually feeding yourself? What are you giving yourself? And not just food, but like, what are you feeding your brain? What are you looking, you know what I mean? And again, I'm not I'm not saying that I don't like a good Netflix binge and a glass of wine. So just so you know, like there's no judgment when it comes for me, but it's just being in that place of, really paying attention to what are you doing and really becoming intentional about all of the things that we do. And I feel those of us in this role, it gets, you can get to that place. Like I was like this at the end of the year last year with my guides. I'm like, come on, do I just have to talk about the same thing over and over? Because I feel like I'm on a broken record. But what they reminded me is there's always somebody who hasn't heard it. So to us, we're like, oh yeah, get back in your body. We already know what that means, but there's so many people out there that they don't even know what that means, right? So it's still continuing to do the practices that you do, living by example, and also for people that are willing and ready, even if it's only 4 people, maybe those 4 people, that's exactly what they need. And I get it being on, for your side of it, I know what it's like to have to facilitate that, and it does take energy. But really only saying yes to things that we know we're called to do. And then it's the whole, we all know this too, and it sounds so cliche, but it's the whole surrender, right? Of surrendering to, I'm just going to trust what I'm being called to do. And I do feel it's going to be really important for those of us like this that kind of already have that awakening. We already understand it, to be there to help people when they do awaken, or when they start to want to go deeper, or when they are, even if they're just beginning, or if they've been doing it 100 times. Like I had to remind one of my clients the other day, I'm like, it's boring. You got to do the same stuff. Like, I know it's not sexy to say, go back and do the same work that you've already done, but like, God, I'm having trouble connecting to my guides. Well, how much have you been meditating? Have you been doing any journaling? Like, and she's like, crap. And I'm like, I know, but you've got to do that stuff. So it's doing all the basics, doing all the things that we know that we need to do to take care of ourselves, taking a salt bath, drinking plenty of water, like doing all this stuff that sounds, it's not sexy to tell somebody, well, go take a bath and relax and breathe. They're like, but isn't there we're so used to instant gratification, right? So I think that might be, right now especially, that might be a really good place to be for people. And then of course being out and showing people, right? So that, because we can't right now with the whole, there's a lot of places that are still in lockdown or whatever. And if we take into the account the Aquarian energy, we know it's all going to be a little more techie, right? So this needs to be comfortable. This being on Zoom and being on Skype and having those, those kind of meetings needs to also be more comfortable. I think personally. And actually, I just saw what time it is when I touched my phone. So thank you guys so much. I will catch the replay on whatever you guys wrap up, and I'm going to have to jump off. But thank you so much, Michelle, for inviting me on today.
Yes, thank you for coming.
Okay, talk to you guys soon.
Okay.
It was great to meet you guys. I can't wait to connect.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, Cheri, do you want to follow up? We only have like about 10 minutes left on my time here. We can probably do another Zoom if we want to continue.
Okay.
But if you want to go ahead and finish up.
Okay. So what I'm working on this year is, a friend of mine has a premium YouTube channel, and I'm going to get my message out that way. I just had a psychic fair that I did online, where my goal wasn't to do readings, it was to get the message out. And what I did is I took it and I did Spirituality 101, getting back to basics for beginners. All the questions that I had that nobody was there to answer for the first year, I addressed, and things like Jennifer touched on. And then, also for intermediates and people that consider them gurus or shamans or healers, because sometimes we get so caught up in just keeping up with what we're doing, we start talking over people's heads, whether it's at church or in our practice. And so getting back to basics, remembering the basic lingo and addressing that a few times, I feel like it's that sacred spiral thing again, where we know this, but then we go back, and by doing so, not only do we remind ourselves, but also our targeted audience, who then goes out and starts talking in their conversations, and it trickles down that way. And so I think for us to use the platforms of Zoom and the different social media that we have available, YouTube, any way we can get that message out, but also to keep praying over that space that we're in and praying over the people's homes that we're touching, because I think that's going to be how we combat the darkness that kind of tries to follow us sometimes, if you know, and making sure we're praying over not just ourselves, but for the highest good of every single person we come into touch, because some of us are going to have somebody just scrolling and happen to find us, and that might be the only healer they've ever heard or seen. And so making sure that we're just praying for the highest good for whoever comes across it at whatever time period. I hope that helps. It is a frustration of mine because I have all this stuff I want to tell people, and sometimes I get 1 or 2 readings a week if I'm lucky. But then the people that I'm touching go home, and a year later they come back and tell me the progress that their families have seen. So just stay encouraged. So I don't know how I'm
Thank
doing.
you so much.
Thank you. I know like this would be hard for Lisa, but I mean, I have a radio show that I do a few days a week. That's a podcast also. So it goes out to numerous people afterwards. So if any of you ladies ever want to join my podcast, I'm more than welcome to have you guys come in as a guest. And it's a live radio type podcast, so other people can come on and ask questions. So it's really great to get information out that way. Doing more Zoom, I know for Lisa that'd be hard unless you're kind of doing breath work. Do you have your own facility, Lisa, again? Or because I know you did it one time, but I wasn't quite sure if you still did.
Yeah, we sold our building just in time, and then all the stuff happened with lockdowns. But yeah, I'm working in a karate dojo, and it's not my space, but it's a space that I am using, and that's working pretty well. And it's a clean, energetic space, so that's been a real blessing. And I would love to be on your show. I have a pretty flexible schedule if there's something special going on. So yeah, we can talk about that. And I think that you all have a really good point. I actually have a show called Lisa and Friends, and I was feeling inspired as I was listening to everyone to start doing that again, and have people on and talk about these kinds of issues, and just to get people invited to think about some things. You know, sometimes I think I get stuck in, I write a lot of things on Facebook when I feel moved to do so. And then there's sometimes like an aggressive, defensive energy in the conversations afterward. But I think if we have a radio show or there's a YouTube show, people can watch it later and they might have some thoughts about it, but it might just have a different way of kind of wending its way into people's consciousness. So I love that idea.
Cool. I'd love to have you both on there. So the radio show is just that, it's radio. There's no pictures, but it still helps. I mean, I upload it to my YouTube, I upload it to Facebook. And if people are like listening to their car, it's a lot easier than trying to like figure out, oh, there's a picture that's going along with it, a visual. It's more auditorial. So that's always a good thing. So I do that on Mondays and Wednesdays at 11 a.m. So just so you guys know, it's pretty set. Would love to have you guys on. Always looking for new people because the energy becomes different. But I think like with the world changing, I'm hoping that we can get back to doing holistic fairs in person again. That would be great. Because I know like having a conversation like this about energy is totally doable during like through Zoom and live events with the computers, but to actually do a reading through Zoom is so hard with the distortion of the energy that each energy field goes through. I would rather have your blank picture there where I'm not trying to read your energy. I'm just doing like a remote as we're talking than actually seeing your face and doing it that way. It's a little bit easier. Do you guys feel that same way too?
Not so much. I actually like to see the face. I guess because I do some NLP work, some of my skill set has to do with reading energy through physicality. And so for me, you know, my gift is a little different, I think. So I'm curious what Cheri has to say though.
I've had readings as far as Australia and the UK, and I've been able to do it. It is a little tougher, it is, but I mean this as a joke, but I'm kind of envious of those people that can look at a picture and have all this information. I just don't seem to pick up on as much as they do. So that's exciting to know that there's people out there that do that. I would probably have a lot more business if I could do it that way. You know, people feel comfortable. Here's a picture, or do a healing. I have friends that do it, but I do better praying and asking angels in and seeing somebody's face, whether, yeah, on the other side of the screen or my table.
You know, I want to just say something about that, Cheri, because years and years ago, like a whole lifetime ago, I did the Silva method. And that has some teaching on remote healing. And I was very, very green and just starting out in dabbling in any of this. And we used just a name. And I was working with somebody in my classes, like relative or something to that effect. And they didn't say anything to me at all. And it was using them as a proxy. And what I came up with was so on and right on that it blew my mind. I mean, I'm in there thinking I'm guessing and I don't know what I'm doing, but then I'll just say this. And so I think maybe in some ways it's just a matter of practice and belief and faith. But there's always a comfort level in what we know, right? And what we've proven to ourselves works. So just throwing that out there.
All right, ladies, I want to say thank you for joining me today. If you both want to like message me your email addresses, I will get you a copy. All right, so thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Love.
Yes. That was so amazing.
Okay, this is not one.